Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
The lesser gods looked at Zhou Zhou in disbelief and horror. They had never expected that this common people's regal could actually break this restriction and raise his strength to the level of a true god tier on this battlefield where the highest level of existence was low-tier deity level elementary grade god spirits. They had long heard that Your Excellency had mastered a secret technique that could greatly increase one's strength. It could even allow a lesser god to directly have the strength of a true god tier. They did not believe it at first, but now that they saw it, they had no choice but to believe it. However, there were still some god spirits who did not believe that Zhou Zhou really had the strength of a true god tier. They were the loyal subordinates of the true god of aging and illness, Vapolius. Seeing that the god spirits of their faction had their auras snatched away by Zhou Zhou, they immediately panicked. How can there be such a ridiculous nomological mystic technique that can increase one's strength in the myriad worlds? This must be a lie from the Lord of the Blazing Sun. Yes, it's a phantom. It's an illusion. This common people's regal must have mastered some kind of nomological technique that can create illusions and confuse our senses. Wake up! A god spirit of the law of wind immediately shouted at the gods, trying to stabilize their morale. When Zhou Zhou saw this, he pulled out the universe-destroying blade without thinking and shot the law of extermination saber chi at him. With the enhancement of the true god-tier chaotic sacred power, this wind law god spirit, who was best at escaping, did not even have the time to escape. His divine spark was easily shattered by his destruction saber energy, and he died on the spot. The scene immediately fell silent. All the god spirits were shocked by this slash. Even though they were shocked when they heard the legendary tier legend about the common people's regal, they didn't feel much fear deep down in their bones. They didn't even want to believe that it was the truth. They only felt that it was a rumor. Some things could only be truly believed when one saw it with their own eyes after all. However, everyone immediately realized the true terror of this common people's regal when a god spirit was easily killed by the other party's saber, and the common people's regal even felt that it did not take much effort. They looked at each other and had different thoughts. Come with me and kill him. We might all die here if we don't kill him. Even if we return, we will be punished by Your Excellency Vapolius. A god spirit who walked the path of the law of waves held his low-tier deity level elementary grade divine artifact and transformed into a shocking wave that could turn the world upside down. He was the first to charge at Zhou Zhou. When the other god spirits saw this, some of them immediately used their own methods and rushed over without thinking. Some deities looked hesitant, not knowing if they should go up. Meanwhile, some gods were looking at them with flickering eyes. While showing that they wanted to follow them, they were already planning to escape. This common people's regal had once killed a pseudo-true god-tier existence as a legendary tier advanced grade after all. The god spirit's corpse was still warm from that move just now. They weren't the god spirits under Vapolius's dead loyal subordinates, so why would they risk their lives for him? This group of idiots who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth provided him with the opportunity to escape. At this moment, facing these gods with different thoughts, Zhou Zhou's expression was calm. I'll show you what the real spatio-temporal region is, he said softly. Then, he patted the sword of new dimension creation at his waist. He heard the chaos-colored treasure at the center of the sword of new dimension creation, the chaos world origin pearl that the spiritual maiden had created, tremble slightly, emitting a terrifying sound that seemed to shake the world. Immediately after, a gray membrane of the spatio-temporal region expanded from the origin pearl of the chaotic world and quickly enveloped the entire divine battlefield. This range was not even the limit of the spatio-temporal region. It was just that Zhou Zhou did not want to waste his strength for nothing. Otherwise, this spatio-temporal region could be expanded to an even more astonishing extent. When the 20 to 30 god spirits under the Vapolius pantheon were included in the spatio-temporal region, they immediately panicked. They fled in all directions, wanting to leave this place. However, they soon realized that it was impossible for them to leave this place in a short period of time with their strength. This was a true god-tier technique after all. They were only low-tier deity-level elementary-grade god spirits now. They could not even unleash their original strength. They thought of something and immediately looked at Zhou Zhou, who was surrounded by 7 or 8 god spirits. Zhou Zhou looked at them with a calm expression. Then he extended his right hand and lowered his palm. Immediately after, he suddenly flipped his palm upward. All the god spirits immediately felt that their sense of direction had become chaotic, and their consciousness was even a little dazed. When they came back to their senses and looked at Zhou Zhou again, their expressions changed drastically. A huge and handsome face that was tens of millions of kilometers away was looking at them with a faint smile outside the spatiotemporal region. At some point in time, beneath their feet had turned into a strong and fair palm that resembled a continent. The palm lines were clearly visible. Have we become fish in a fish tank? Some god spirits saw the terrifying truth here, and their faces instantly turned pale. When the other god spirits heard this, they immediately observed their surroundings. Then, they realized what the other party meant. We're trapped in common people's regal's palm? This is the common people's regal. I should never have come here. It's over. It's over this time. Why did I provoke His Excellency, the common people's regal? Your Excellency, common people's regal, please spare my life. I'm willing to become a member of your pantheon group. The gods and spirits faced the current desperate situation. Some were angry, some were regretful, some were in despair, and some were begging for mercy. All kinds of attitudes were different. Zhou Zhou looked at the gray chaotic bubble floating in his right palm. Through the chaotic bubble, he could see the various expressions of the 32 deities inside. He found it very interesting. After letting the spiritual maiden become the spirit of the divine artifact of the sword of new dimension creation, not only did the potential of the divine artifact increase exponentially, but the source of the world was also saved for tens of thousands of years and directly upgraded to a chaotic world. Even the strength of the spatiotemporal region increased. In the past, the spatiotemporal region could not do this. They could easily seal dozens of god spirits. Zhou Zhou sighed. Then, he looked at these god spirits and said, I don't seem to have any grudges with the true god of aging and illness, Vapolius. Why did he assign you to deal with me? Why didn't he even hesitate to fight for the divine artifact fragment of the spirit-nurturing stone seed? I don't know. Void Polius crown. That guy only asked us to come and trap you, help those enemies who are hostile to you, and get rid of your wings. We don't know anything else. Please let us go. These god spirits were really afraid of Zhou Zhou. This guy was a ferocious god who could even casually kill a true god tier. Killing these little fellows, who weren't even true god tiers, was probably easier than crushing ants. Even though we don't know why Vapolius wanted to kill you, Your Excellency, I think it's easy to guess. The Law of Time god spirit, who was previously in charge of activating the 3 layers of the space-time heavenly lock array, said carefully, Now, all the god spirits in the outside world know that your dominance in the Lord of all races is too strong. Even the lords of those top bloodline races are far from your match. If this continues, you might really have a chance to defeat them and obtain the position of the Lord of all races. The upper echelons of those top bloodline races will not allow an accident like you to exist. However, the Supreme Agreement created by the Supreme will does not allow those top bloodline races to casually attack the lords of the myriad races. Under such circumstances, they can only rely on the power of other factions. I think Vapolius should know this, which is why he took the initiative to attack you. After all, as long as you participate in this competition for the true god-tier divine artifacts, it's equivalent to participating in the feud between the Vapolius Pantheon Group and the Pantheon Group. It indirectly gives Vapolius the opportunity and authority to attack you. As long as he can get rid of you, even if it only weakens your influence in the Lord of all Races tournament, he will be able to obtain the appreciation and help of those top bloodline races. It will definitely be very beneficial for he to advance to a higher level in the future. He is very smart. He knows that he is not your match, So he has decided to weaken your lord's power by restricting you. Zhou Zhou was speechless. It turned out that he had been targeted by the Vapolius Pantheon group because he had participated in the feud between these two pantheons. It seemed like he could not borrow this mission casually in the future. If he was not careful, he would easily get into trouble. Even though the Vapolius Pantheon group wasn't considered a scourge to him and had even sent him more than 30 future subordinates of God's spirits. What's your name? What in God's name? Zhou Zhou asked this law of time god spirit. He could tell that this god spirit had attained the level of a god by using the law of time skill, and not by switching to the law of time after becoming a god. To be able to become a god spirit with the law of time meant that this god spirit was extremely talented. To be able to become a god spirit with the law of time meant that this god spirit was extremely talented. After hearing Zhou Zhou's words, this law of time god spirit naturally understood what this common people's regal meant. He didn't hesitate and immediately said respectfully, "My name is Hephamas, and my name is God of Eternal Time." Zhou Zhou raised his eyebrows. And Nully, Eternal Time? Wasn't this the most powerful law skill in the time flow category? It was said that gods who had comprehended this law skill could completely control the flow of time in their area and form a world of eternal time. Only true god tier and above could sense living beings who had comprehended the world of eternal time. At the true god tier level, those who had comprehended an even higher level of the eternal time realm were known to be below the master god tier. No one could break through the eternal time realm, let alone kill a true god tier who had grasped the eternal time realm. Other than the existences who had mastered the Lord's laws, almost no one else had the confidence to kill such a true god tier. Even a master god tier might not be able to capture a true god tier who had comprehended the eternal time realm. When a true god tier was at the elementary grade, they could even point at the nose of a top-notch true god tier god spirit and scold him. However, the other party could not do anything to him. This was the horror of the god spirits in eternity. Are you willing to join my blazing sun kingdom? Zhou Zhou knew that he had encountered a talent comparable to the mythical reputation rating, so he immediately asked, "I'm willing," Hephamas said immediately. As soon as he finished speaking, he immediately felt the surrounding god spirits look at him with a dangerous gaze. Hephamas' expression remained unchanged. No matter how dangerous it was, could it be more dangerous than your excellency? Even though he had grasped such a heaven-defying life-saving law skill, it was precisely because of this that he knew very well how terrifying it was to comprehend the Lord's laws and obtain the status of a regal. Joining this, Your Excellency, might seem dangerous at the moment and could easily arouse the hostility of those top bloodline races. However, as long as His Excellency grew up, even the super experts of the top bloodline races would have to step aside. Consider it an investment. He was betting on His Excellency's future. He was also betting on his future. Okay. Zhou Zhou chuckled. From now on, you are my subordinate, one of the subjects and worshipped god spirits of the blazing sun kingdom. As soon as she finished speaking, before Hephamas could react, he suddenly felt a gentle force descend on his heart out of thin air. This power followed the flow of his blood and surged to various parts of his body, quickly transforming and improving his divine body and soul. After the power disappeared, Hephamas still looked a little intoxicated. "What is this power?" he muttered. Then he was suddenly taken aback. He looked at his divine body and said in disbelief, My potential has advanced to the Master God Tier Advanced Grade." He was a true God Tier Advanced Grade genius with super potential. Now, under this mysterious power, he had actually reached the limit of the Master God Tier Advanced Grade. At the same time, he also felt that his appearance, constitution, and other aspects had been slightly enhanced. Even though his potential didn't increase as much, he was still very surprised. Just as he was feeling pleasantly surprised, Zhou Zhou's voice resounded throughout the spatio-temporal region. "This is the benefit of joining this king's blazing sun kingdom. Thank you, Your Majesty." Hephamas immediately knelt in the void in excitement and ecstasy, bowing to Zhou Zhou with the highest etiquette of his race. He never expected that to happen. He had just invested in it, but he had actually received such a pleasant surprise from him. This return came too quickly. If he had known this would happen, he would have long come all the way to seek refuge with this king of the blazing sun. Why would he still be with Vapolius? The other god spirits looked at Hephamas in a daze. As god spirits, they could naturally sense the changes in the other party's body. It was a change that they yearned for. And what he did, just to surrender to this common people's regal and become his worshipped god spirit? Then, the god of violent storm and pirates, Aslan, originally followed your excellency the regal. A blue figure holding a miniature pirate ship with a soul-like body shouted excitedly before bowing to Zhou Zhou. I'm Rusk, the god of neon color and painting. In fact, I've long heard of your excellency's prestige. I hope that I'll be lucky enough to join his majesty. A god spirit dressed in various canvases and holding a paintbrush bowed elegantly. He looked gorgeous and messy. I am the god of strength and combat. I hope to fight for his majesty. I am the god of hunting and archery. My arrows are at your service. After a while, more than half of these 32 god spirits actually said that they wanted to join the Blazing Sun Kingdom and become worship god spirits. Zhou Zhou did not say anything when he saw this. He directly got them to join the Blazing Sun Kingdom on the spot before releasing them to follow him. As for the remaining stubborn god spirits, he didn't even look at them. With a casual slap, he sent the spatiotemporal region and them into the chaotic world of the Sword of New Dimension Creation. After he returned, if these god spirits had thought it through and were willing to surrender, they would naturally be released and let him join the Blazing Sun Kingdom to stabilize the other party's loyalty. Those who were unwilling to surrender would continue to be imprisoned. Then, he would have his subordinates who controlled the incite defection incite them one by one until they were all incinerated. In short, he wanted everything. Zhou Zhou looked at the god spirits who had chosen to surrender to him. There were a total of 19 of them. Among them, there were 3 high-tier deity levels, 5 mid-tier deity levels, and 11 low-tier deity levels. At this moment, they were all suppressed by the divine battlefield here, and had only recovered their low-tier deity level elementary grade strength. Zhou Zhou waved his right hand, and an invisible Lord Law gently brushed past them. Then, these god spirits were suddenly pleasantly surprised to discover that the power of the domain that had been suppressing them previously had quickly disappeared like melting snow. Nully boom 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 boom. A shocking aura erupted from their bodies, and they had already recovered their original strength. Thank you, Your Majesty, the god spirits said respectfully. Zhou Zhou nodded, then counted with his fingers and muttered, I don't think I can make it in time. Then let's try this ability. Zhou Zhou closed his eyes and sat cross-legged in the void. The god spirits did not say anything when they saw this. Even though they did not know what had happened, they still consciously protected their new master god. At the same time, in the territory of the human race, Night Empire, the Virtuous Titan City. The Virtuous Titan race was originally the base of the Virtuous Titan race. This was originally a savage human tribe. Later on, when the upper echelons of the human race discovered that the Virtuous Titan race was talented and even had the potential to become Empire-level soldier type, they spent a large amount of resources to forcibly transform this tribe into a huge city ranked amongst the top 10 of the human race. The Virtuous Titan race did not let down the human race's investment. The Empire-level soldier type, Army Extermination Knight, and the Empire-level soldier type, Fire Dragon Sword Immortal, could be said to be the twin walls of the human race and had protected the human race for countless years. Even though they had suffered countless casualties because of this, the races where these two soldier types were from had always been willing to fight for the human race without any regrets. This situation only quickly eased after Zhou Zhou exported 2 billion Yellow Talisman Dao Soldier class change certificates to the human race. The class change certificate could allow an ordinary close combat soldier type to directly become a powerful high-level soldier type after less than a second of use after all. Therefore, after the humans obtained the 2 billion Empire-level soldier type class change certificate, they directly summoned 2 billion human soldiers to use it, making them 2 billion Yellow Talisman Dao soldiers. Compared to the 100 million Army Extermination Knights and Fire Dragon Sword Immortal, 2 billion Yellow Talisman Dao soldiers was a number that humans did not even dare to think about in the past. Their participation directly increased the strength of the human race by several times. It even made the upper echelons of the human race, who had originally planned to retreat to the primordial world, a little hot-blooded and want to stay and protect the territory of the human race. It was only when the Yellow Emperor and the others stepped forward to dissuade them, indicating that the enemy was very powerful and not something that 2 billion Imperial-level soldier types could deal with, that they reluctantly agreed to continue retreating into the primordial world's racial strategy. At this moment, the entire virtuous Titan city was in flames of war. 5 different races led more than 5 billion soldiers to besiege this huge city. At this moment, there were only 800 million Blazing Sun Army soldiers led by Heros, 3 Extreme Dragon Race soldiers, Nazario, more than 50 million Fog Monster soldiers, more than 1 million Army Extermination Knights, more than 20 million Virtuous Titan Race soldiers, and more than 50 million ordinary human soldiers in the city. Even though the human side's troops were far inferior to the enemy soldiers, what made the ordinary human subjects watching the battle feel unbelievable and pleasantly surprised was that their human soldiers were actually suppressing the 5 soldiers of the people of foreign races. In front of the 800 million soldiers of the Blazing Sun Army, the 5 billion soldiers of the people of foreign races did not seem to be able to resist at all. In fact, they were crushing them. This was an absolute direct suppression in terms of the combat strength of the soldier type. As expected of Counselor Blazing Sun's soldier, his combat strength is simply breathtaking. The Een Ghost clan, the Luosha clan, the Blood Moon clan, the Heaven Hidden clan, and the Shadow clan. These 5 races have always been eyeing us humans covetously. This time, they really took advantage of the human clan's weak period to attack us. Ha 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 ha. Who would have thought that they would encounter our speaker Blazing Sun? Even though there aren't many Empire-level soldiers in the other party's army, which is one of the reasons why the soldiers of the Blazing Sun Kingdom have such a huge advantage, the soldiers of the Blazing Sun Kingdom seem to be very strong. I can also tell that the Army Extermination Knight of the Virtuous Titan race seems to be far inferior to the soldiers of the Blazing Sun Army, who also have Imperial-level soldier types. That's called the Yellow Talisman Dao soldier. It's already the strongest soldier type of our human race. I heard that Speaker Blazing Sun provided a large number of Yellow Talisman Dao soldier class change certificates for our human race. His Excellency the Yellow Emperor even stipulated that anyone who has contributed to our human race and has the ambition to enter the battlefield to fight for us can exchange for a Yellow Talisman Dao soldier class change certificate for free. I heard that many Virtuous Titan race members have already given up on the path of the Army Extermination Knight in the future and are prepared to walk the path of the Yellow Talisman Dao soldier. My contributions should be enough. I want to exchange for another one too. Me too. Let's go together. It's a pity that my contribution isn't enough. The ordinary subjects in Virtuous Titan City who were watching the battle discussed among themselves after seeing the intense battle on the battlefield. The appearance of a large number of Yellow Talisman Dao soldier class change certificates had too much of an impact on the human race. Zhou Zhou had unknowingly established an extremely terrifying prestige in the human race and had also affected the future development of the human race. At the same time, Yuan Song was in a fierce battle with a high-tier deity-level advanced grade god which suddenly threw out a black-purple thunderball. An extremely strong sense of danger suddenly appeared in Yuan Song's heart. Without thinking, he left the spot at an extremely fast speed. However, before he could run far, the black-purple thunderball exploded. The range of the explosion covered an area with a diameter of more than 3 million kilometers. The violent explosion sent he flying to the ground. Haha. The high-tier deity-level god spirit from the Een Ghost clan sneered when he saw this. This Ghost Thunder was a supreme secret treasure of their race, and it was extremely difficult to refine. Not only did it require a large number of god-tier materials, it also required a large amount of time and energy from the god spirits to refine one. Unfortunately, it could only be used once. After using it, even if it was used up, it would have to find another Ghost clan god spirit and continue to spend a lot of time and energy to refine it again. However, even though there were many difficulties in refining this Ghost Thunder, his might was also extremely astonishing. The explosive power of Ghost Thunder was comparable to the combined attack of 3 top-notch high-tier deity-level advanced grade experts. The Ghost clan had existed for hundreds of thousands of years. With this powerful Ghost lightning, they had killed countless powerful enemies and survived countless genocides. Therefore, when Yuan Song was struck by the Ghost Thunder, this high-tier deity-level god spirit was certain that this powerful blazing Sun Kingdom god spirit was definitely dead. However, he still felt a lingering fear when he thought of the combat strength he had just displayed. Then, he couldn't help but curse. Are all the god spirits of the blazing Sun Kingdom so abnormal? A mid-tier deity level battled with an old high-tier deity level like me, and actually made me unable to withstand it. I almost died and had no choice but to use the supreme secret treasure of my race. This is my life-saving treasure. His heart ached. There would be one else every time he used one. He only had 2 in total. After this battle, in the next 100 years, he would probably have to spend all his time and energy on refining this Ghost Thunder. Just as he wanted to leave this place to deal with the other god spirits of the blazing Sun Kingdom, he suddenly stopped in his tracks and turned his head abruptly. He held onto the huge area that was enveloped by the black-purple lightning. These purple-black lightning bolts were normal for a second. The next second, it was as if they had encountered a vortex as they crazily surged towards the ground. Under the crazy suction of the vortex, not much of the black-purple lightning was left in less than a moment, revealing the 2 figures inside. One of the figures was Yuan Song. There was an unfathomable pitch-black world fissure in his palm. One could vaguely see a real world inside with billions of life forms. The strange lightning created by the black-purple Ghost Thunder was absorbed by this world fissure. And the other living being that survived behind him was Princess Yuling, whom Zhou Zhou had not seen for a long time. At this moment, the princess of the Night Empire looked at the destruction around her with a shocked expression. "Thank you for your help, Senior. You have the gratitude of Yuling, princess of the Kingdom of Nights. A life as weak as an ant." Yuan Song could not be bothered with her and said indifferently, "Don't thank me. I only saved your life because I knew that you knew our emperor. Hurry up and escape. I won't save you again." With that, he pointed casually at her glabella. Yuling felt a large amount of sword-down knowledge surge into her brain as if she had been enlightened. At this moment, Yuling instantly realized that with the help of this blazing Sun Kingdom god spirit expert, her comprehension of the sword Tao had actually risen to a height infinitely close to the level of a god spirit. As long as she mastered these sword Tao comprehensions and comprehended her sword Tao nomological skill, she would definitely be able to advance to become a sword Tao god spirit with an extremely strong foundation. Yuling was shocked. What kind of technique was this? What you accept is only the sword technique comprehension of the legendary believers who cultivate the path of the sword Tao and the laws in my world. I gave it to you using a secret technique unique to the original spirit race. You're making a fuss. Don't die on the run. After saying that, Yuan Song flew into the sky and fought with the shocked Ghost clan god spirit again. Okay. Yuling nodded and did not say anything stupid like, "I want to fight alongside you, Senior." She turned around and was about to leave quickly. Her self-awareness was clear. The battlefield of this god spirit senior was not something a legendary advanced grade like her, who had relied on the treasures given by her father to forcefully advance, could step into. If she dared to interfere even a little, she would definitely die a horrible death. However, before she could run far, she heard a bang. A figure descended from the sky and smashed into the ground not far away, creating a huge pit with a diameter of 10,000 meters. Then, a silver figure soared into the sky and floated in the sky. He looked at a place even higher with a solemn expression. It was the Yuan Song. Yuling's expression changed, and she hurriedly looked over. Then, her face immediately turned pale. Where did so many god spirits come from? Yuling cried out. At some point in time, more than 20 god spirits of the people of foreign races had appeared in the sky. They stared at the soldiers and god spirits of the blazing sun kingdom covetously. A portion of the god spirits of the people of foreign races had intense hatred in their eyes, while the other god spirits either looked indifferently or eagerly at the soldiers and god spirits of the blazing sun kingdom. Looks like we've been ambushed. Yuling wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and said coldly. Nazario, Heras, Luoshang, and a low-level god spirit also flew over from afar. They stood side by side. Only Nazario was floating in the sky, looking at the scarlet god spirit that was also sneering at them in the sky. These god spirits seemed to be remnants of the kingdoms that we conquered previously. Some of them escaped before we arrived when we conquered those kingdoms. Some of them were not in the kingdom at all, and were traveling outside to search for god-tier resources. Some of them were worshipped by the gods of the fallen kingdoms that we did not capture at that time. I didn't expect them to make a comeback today, Heras said. The other gods didn't say anything. In a kingdom-level battle, it was normal for a few enemy experts to escape. They just did not expect that these god spirits would actually dare to appear in front of them again. Was it because His Majesty was not around that they felt that they could take advantage of the situation? I'll contact His Majesty. Heras immediately wanted to contact Zhou Zhou through his personal terminal. But soon, his expression changed. I can't contact him. According to the feedback from the terminal, His Majesty seems to be in a space-time array, at least at the high-tier deity level. My personal terminal version is too low, so I can't send a message to His Majesty. Hurry up and upgrade your personal terminal to the Super Galaxy Personal Terminal version 9090 Ti. Recently, Wenyo is going to hold a huge price reduction to promote this new product. Even though the price is a little expensive, I heard that it's made entirely of true god-tier materials. Even if you're trapped in a true god-tier array, you can send news out. It can save your life at critical moments. Nazario sent a message in his mind. Then, he opened his dragon mouth and saw a silver, mechanical-looking personal terminal that looked like an exquisite miniature galaxy embedded in his black dragon tongue. The other gods were envious. Just this personal terminal made of true god-tier materials was comparable to a small-scale true god elementary-grade divine artifact. You bought it? Luosheng asked. His Majesty gave it to me, Nazario said. The others? Everyone said irrelevant words, not worried about His Majesty's safety at all. Existences that could threaten Zhou Zhou's life in the High Continent were probably not even born yet. What they were worried about should be their own safety. Just as Nazario was about to talk more about the benefits of this MDT, he suddenly froze and looked at the starry sky in surprise. An illusory star, emitting the light of thousands of laws, shot over from the distant starry sky and rushed into Nazario's glabella in the blink of an eye. Nazario actually did not dodge and allowed the illusory star to fuse into his body. The aura on his quietly changed. It was like the arrival of a regal, as if a god emperor was alive and all the gods had submitted to it. The other god spirits saw the change in Nazario's temperament and seemed to realize something. They suddenly knelt down respectfully and excitedly to Nazario. Greetings, Your Majesty. Nazario slowly opened his dragon eyes. Stand down, he said. Yes. The god spirits bowed respectfully and retreated to Nazario's back without hesitation. No, it should be Zhou Zhou who controlled the back of Nazario's dragon body with the divine art. He glanced at his new divine body and nodded slightly. Then, he looked at the god spirits of the people of foreign races in the sky. It was just a glance. The god spirits were terrified. God's descent spell. The aura of the thousands of laws from the stars just now. Could it be the signature myriad methods star palm of the common people's regal? A god spirit from a people of foreign race screamed, mixed with fear and jealousy. How did he become a Holy Spirit tier believer right after becoming a god spirit? How would I know? Hurry. Before he could say the word run, he saw Nazario suddenly use the law skill king to raise his aura to the level of true god tier elementary grade. Then, it suddenly opened its dragon mouth, and an incomparably pitch-black and terrifying flame with a rich abyssal aura appeared, as if endless demons were wailing in it. It was Nazario's best and most powerful intrinsic law skill, Abyssal Sacred Fire. Before these god spirits could react, they were buried in this abyssal sacred fire. In the blink of an eye, their auras disappeared. After the abyssal sacred fire disappeared, only rich loots were left floating in the air. They were summoned by Nazario with a thought and swallowed into his stomach. The world fell silent. All the living beings looked at Nazario in shock. Nazario, on the other hand, only burped lazily. Nazario did not have any regrets about killing these people of foreign race god spirits. With the King of Loots around, he could definitely drop a god spirit legacy of a higher level after all. As long as these 3 divine inheritances were given to the legendary tier soldiers under him to use, it wouldn't be long before they could use the ready-made divine path in the Book of the God Spirit to advance to become gods. Moreover, it was a god spirit with higher potential in the future, compared to Zhou Zhou using forceful methods to subdue the god spirits of the people of foreign races. Actually, the latter was more valuable to Zhou Zhou. With the legendary tier lord talent, Blessing of the War God, Zhou Zhou's subordinates would be able to unleash the value of the inheritance of a high-level god spirit in a few days, reaching a level of strength equivalent to being subdued by a god spirit or even higher after all. That would be more beneficial to him. Nazario looked at Heros and the others. Continue to clean up the enemy here while I continue to support the other soldiers. He said, Yes, Your Majesty. Even though the gods were a little ashamed that they actually needed His Majesty to risk his life to save the situation, they knew that their strength was not enough to deal with this conspiracy that involved all the soldiers of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Therefore, they could only listen obediently. However, they had already decided to try their best to kill as many enemies as possible and increase their strength to the extent that they did not need His Majesty's help. Nazario nodded slightly when he saw this. Then, he looked at Yuling. Princess Yuling, long time no see. His voice sounded in Yuling's heart. Long time no see, Blazing Sun. Your Excellency Common People's Regal. Yuling was stunned for a moment before saying with a complicated tone. The two of them had clearly not seen each other for a few days, but there was already a huge gap between their statuses. She felt that she was getting further and further away from this Common People's Regal. Haha, we've known each other for a long time. You don't have to be so polite. Zhou Zhou chuckled and said, Let's address each other as before in private. Yuling was stunned for a moment before a bright smile appeared on her face. She nodded vigorously. Zhou Zhou nodded when he saw this. Following that, he spread out his true god-tier level divine sense and covered a radius of 10 billion kilometers in the blink of an eye. Then, he quickly found the nearest faction of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. With a thought, his massive dragon god body instantly vanished. A few seconds later, he instantly transmitted to an area more than 100 million kilometers away. This was also a city in the Night Empire. Zhou Zhou didn't know what city it was exactly, but he could see Guoqiao and the other god spirits leading 1 billion soldiers to protect the human subjects in the city while resisting the invading people of foreign races. Moreover, just like what Heros and the others had encountered, they were also being attacked by nearly 30 god spirits of the people of foreign races. When Zhou Zhou saw this, he directly flew down. With a sweep of the abyssal holy fire, this group of gods, who were at most high-tier deity level, were burned to death by he and turned into loots that he swallowed. That's Lord Nazario? Lord Nazario is actually so powerful? There are so many god spirits, yet none of them can withstand a mouthful of his flames. Wait, that's not right. Lord Nazario's aura is His Majesty's aura. His Majesty is here. Greetings, His Majesty. Greetings, Your Majesty. Greetings, Your Majesty. The soldiers and god spirits were extremely excited. Continue to protect the humans and retreat. I'll go elsewhere to help. Zhou Zhou scanned the crowd with his dragon eyes and said in a booming voice, Yes, Your Majesty, Exin. Everyone said respectfully. Zhou Zhou nodded and teleported elsewhere. Only the soldiers of the Blazing Sun Kingdom and the soldiers of the human territories were left to discuss the legend of the common people's regal. In the following period of time, Zhou Zhou rode on Nazario's dragon body and relied on his infinite teleportation ability to slaughter all the god spirits of the people of foreign races in the human territory, obtaining the spoils of war of more than 300 god spirits. Zhou Zhou was not surprised by this number. Among these god spirits, other than the gods of the fallen nations and the gods they had invited to help, there were also the gods who wanted to stop the humans from retreating to the surrounding people of foreign races and the gods they had invited to help after all. In total, there were already more than 50 racial factions involved in the 4 factions. It was very normal for so many god spirits to appear. But now, these god spirit corpses had benefited Zhou Zhou. He relied on the King of Lutes to extract the corpses of these god spirits and directly obtained more than 300 god spirit inheritances of the lowest mid-tier deity level elementary grade god spirits and the highest true god tier advanced grade god spirits. There were more than 300 divine artifacts below the high tier deity level, and there were as many as 36 true god tier divine artifacts. Unfortunately, he only had one high-tier deity-level advanced grade god spirit subordinate, Heros. The distance between he and a true god tier was naturally long enough in terms of promotion energy. However, in terms of law comprehension, he was still lacking. Zhou Zhou had already decided to return and give him a true god tier level book of the god spirit. At that time, he would go into seclusion in the time world for 1,000 years and absorb all the nomological comprehension. He would definitely be able to advance to the true god tier level the moment he came out of the time world. When the time comes, a true god tier combat power would appear in his territory. When they encountered danger in the future, there would be no need for him to take action personally. A moment later, human race, the Saha Empire. Emptiness City. The founder of this city was one of the 10 great disciples of Buddha, Subhuti. Subhuti's achievements in Buddhism were known as the number 1 in emptiness. Therefore, this city was named after emptiness. At this moment, in a Buddhist temple in this city, a few people were sitting inside. Among them were Zhou Zhou's divine power phantom, the Yellow Emperor's divine power projection, by he, Patriarch Lu, the heavenly bodhisattva of light, Roigar, Mountain Lord Fongtsuan, Subhuti, and a furry monkey. No, it should be called the victorious fighting Buddha, Sun Wukong. Zhou Zhou did not expect this either. He had actually encountered a great sage during this trip to the Emptiness City. As for why they were gathered here, it was purely an accident. Zhou Zhou was riding on Nazario to clean up the god spirits of the people of foreign races one by one. In the end, he happened to encounter by he and Patriarch Lu, who were also supervising the battle in Emptiness City. When Zhou Zhou saw this, he flew down and started chatting with them. At the same time, he also had some questions for him. Master, why don't I leave first? I'll guard the door for you. Okay? No matter how bold Sun Wukong was, he still didn't dare to speak loudly in front of these true god-tier existences. He whispered to Subhuti, You little monkey. Before Subhuti could speak, Ancestor Lu laughed and said, Back when you wreaked havoc in the primordial world, I've never seen you so timid. Why are you so restrained today? I was young back then. Sun Wukong was a little embarrassed. My hostility back then had already melted into the endless Buddhist scriptures in the past. Now, I'm already a mature and steady victorious fighting Buddha. Previously, when the great sage was fighting the enemy on the battlefield, I didn't see any maturity or stability. Zhou Zhou smiled. I'm the victorious fighting Buddha after all. Sun Wukong, on the other hand, was very pleased with himself. Everyone, let me and my disciple leave first. Subhuti smiled and said, He is indeed not suitable for such a serious scene. Sure. They nodded. Subhoodie nodded as well. After bowing to everyone, he left with Sun Wukong. I didn't expect you to become the famous common people's regal after such a short period of time. You killed 3 true god tiers as a low-tier deity-level elementary grade god spirit. Patriarch Lu sighed. I've never heard of such a ridiculous thing in my travels. It's not that bad. Zhou Zhou shook his head. I only managed to kill those 3 true god-tier elementary grade god spirits by relying on my Lord Law skill to temporarily raise my strength to the low-level true god tier. Otherwise, if I'm only at the low-tier deity-level elementary grade, I can at most fight a high-tier deity level. Law skills are part of one's own strength. There's no need to be embarrassed, the Yellow Emperor said with a smile. Besides, you're indeed just a low-tier deity-level elementary grade god spirit. Speaking of which, ever since you exposed your true god-tier combat strength, more and more races have come to form an alliance with us humans. I've indeed received requests for alliance from many races, but I'll only meet them after verifying their true identities and intentions. How many races from the human race have come to request an alliance? Zhou Zhou asked curiously. So far, there are more than 10,000 races. The Yellow Emperor said, however, most of these races are lower middle-class bloodline races similar to us humans. Some races don't even have god spirits. They just heard of your name and have been oppressed by those high-level bloodline races for a long time. They want to find a hope to escape their current predicament, so they came to join us. According to the information I've received, some medium-grade bloodline races and even some high-grade bloodline races actually have the intention to look for our human alliance. However, most of them only dare to have this thought. As for whether they want to really form an alliance with us humans, they are still watching. A small number of high-level bloodline races sent diplomatic envoys over to talk to us and discuss some matters regarding the alliance, including resisting foreign enemies, borrowing from each other's civilization, trading, and so on. However, the conditions they put forward are also relatively harsh. Some high-level bloodline races even asked you to cooperate with their requests to develop. They even asked you to hand over the secret that you developed so quickly. Dream on. When the Yellow Emperor said this, his face was filled with coldness. The others also looked angry. A race's future hope through a true god-tier expert groveling and listening to the plans of others to develop, and they even wanted to tell them the secret of how they had become stronger. Instead of an alliance, they were just taking advantage of the situation. It could even be said that he was bullying them. Zhou Zhou narrowed his eyes when he heard this. However, he wasn't surprised. As he gradually became stronger and entered the line of sight of other races, the forces he came into contact with would definitely become varied. There were those who begged for protection and those who lent a helping hand to the alliance. Naturally, there were also such people who took advantage of the situation. What's the name of that race? What level of experts are there in the race? Zhou Zhou asked. The other party's name is the Song clan. They have a race heritage history of more than 6 million years. As a high-level bloodline race, it's very easy for them to give birth to talents with the law of song and the law of time. Moreover, it's said that there's a master god-tier level inheritance in his race. Under this master god-tier level inheritance, there are already more than 20 true god-tier existences in his race. Among them, there are even 3 upper-level true gods guarding it. Most importantly, it's said that one of the true god advanced grade singers has already touched the threshold of the master god tier. Once they advance to the master god tier level in the future, their singer race will advance to a top-notch bloodline race with a master god tier guarding it. As for the number of god spirits, we haven't investigated clearly yet, but there won't be less than 2,000. The Yellow Emperor said solemnly. After he finished speaking, the atmosphere was a little oppressive. There were more than 2,000 god spirits, and even the inheritance of a master god. There were more than 20 true god-tier existences in the clan. Among them, there were even 3 upper-level true god experts. Furthermore, one of them was suspected to be an existence that could advance to the master god-tier level. This was definitely a crushing strength for the current human race. They could not make enemies with them as of now. Other than Zhou Zhou, everyone else thought so. Zhou Zhou tapped his index finger on the table in front of him and said calmly, "When this king advances to the high-tier deity level, this king will lead my army and personally make a trip to the Song clan." Everyone was shocked. They immediately wanted to dissuade him. For a high-tier deity level to lead an army that had not experienced many wars to barge into the interior of a race that had developed for more than 6 million years sounded like suicide after all. However, they quickly thought of the common people's regals battle results. Why does it feel like there's a chance of success? Everyone could not help but have this feeling. "I'll go with you then." Bai He was the first to speak. "I'll go with you." Patriarch Lu smiled and said, "Adventuring into a high-level bloodline race and challenging more than 20 true god tiers, more than 2,000 god spirits, and countless song race armies. From the looks of it, my previous experience of traveling the myriad worlds might not even be as exciting as this. I'm afraid I can't go." The Yellow Emperor shook his head. His main body was sealed in the Xian Yuan tomb. Even his divine power incarnation could not be used because he had previously used it to save Bai He. He definitely wouldn't be able to participate in the battle that Zhou Zhou mentioned for the time being. "There's no hurry." Zhou Zhou smiled. His nomological comprehension of the Lord's laws had not advanced to the high-tier deity level so quickly. "By the way, I have a question," Zhou Zhou said. "Is Regal Pangu also someone who has comprehended the supreme laws? Otherwise, why would he be addressed as Regal?" The Yellow Emperor and the others looked at each other and chuckled. Then, Emperor Huang said, "That's not true. Actually, we didn't know the meaning of the title Regal before. We only think that Your Excellency Pangu was the earliest lord of our human race. It was precisely he who overcame all obstacles for our human race and fought for the future of the human race. That's why we wanted to call you Your Excellency Pangu as a regal to express his unique status. It has nothing to do with the supreme law. However, Regal Pangu has indeed admired the supreme laws for a long time. Before he fell asleep, he had been trying to make his law of strength reach the realm of one force resisting all laws. Unfortunately, he has never been able to do it. The supreme law is too difficult to comprehend." The Yellow Emperor shook his head. Even Regal Pangu, who was born with a divine appearance, has always found it difficult to enter the sect. Zhou Zhou came to a realization. He thought that Pangu was also a comprehender of the Lord's laws. Then, he thought for a moment and took out a God Spirit Lord book and placed it on the table. This is a Master God tier elementary grade book of the God Spirit. It records the inheritance of a god called the Great Sun God. Whatever their Song clan has, our human race has it too. We don't have to envy them." Zhou Zhou said casually. This book of the God Spirit was obtained by him from the 3 true God tiers he had killed previously. It was a Master God tier level inheritance that followed the law of light and the law of fire. To Zhou Zhou, this was an investment in the human race. He was already the 6th speaker of the human race after all. The stronger a human was, the greater the benefits to him. After he finished speaking, the Yellow Emperor, Patriarch Lu, Bai He, and even the Quangshan Bodhisattva, Roigar, who had been afraid to speak, looked at the book of the God Spirit that emitted a faint golden light in a daze. They never expected that such an extremely precious Master God tier inheritance would be thrown lightly onto the table by Zhou Zhou, saying that it was going to be given to them humans. They were in a daze. Nully, are we dreaming? This was a complete Master God tier inheritance. As long as someone grasped him, it was equivalent to having a path that led straight to the Master God tier. As long as he slowly honed himself and completely absorbed the inheritance recorded in the book of the God Spirit, coupled with the fact that he did not die midway, there was almost an 80% chance of him becoming a Master God tier. Zhou Zhou was equivalent to sending a future Master God tier to the human race. The heavenly Bodhisattva of light had the same thought. He looked at Zhou Zhou in a daze. A Master God tier legacy was casually taken out by him, just like that? Why did he think that he could teach him a lesson when he saw an existence that treated the Master God Tier's inheritance as an ordinary treasure. This is too precious. We can't accept it. The Yellow Emperor resisted the temptation in his heart and said, "You can leave it to your Holy Spirit-level worshipped God Spirit. In the future, it might be possible for your Pantheon group to have a God-level subordinate who is at least a true God Tier, or even a Master God Tier. They will naturally have their own opportunities." Zhou Zhou smiled and did not take back the Book of the God Spirit. The human race really needs another Master God Tier. Instead of rejecting this Book of the God Spirit, why don't you think about who to use this book for? The Yellow Emperor and company were silent. In the end, they decided to accept Zhou Zhou's good intentions. Just as Zhou Zhou had said, the human race really needed a Master God Tier now. If a Master God Tier could appear, they would not have to abandon their homeland and retreat to the primordial world. They could even openly protect Zhou Zhou, the strongest lord of all races, without being threatened by other high-level bloodline races. Even if the other villains knew that Zhou Zhou would suppress the lords of their race, they did not dare to say anything, much less join forces to attack the human race. This was because a race with a Master God Tier was already qualified to compete for the position of the Lord of all races. The entire human race has to thank you. From today onwards, I will order the craftsmen to erect monuments, temples, or books in various areas of the human race to record and praise your contributions to the human race. From then on, you will establish your faith in the entire human race." The Yellow Emperor said solemnly. Zhou Zhou was stunned. Annully and establish my faith? This was no small matter. It had to be known that only Regal Panga could do this in the entire human race. But who was Regal Panga? It was a great existence that had led the human race to overcome all obstacles since the birth of the human race. It had gone from being weak to powerful and established the foundation of the human race. It could be said that without Regal Pango, the human race might not even be able to withstand the weak stage and would disappear from the history of the myriad races. It was not impossible. After countless years of tempering, countless races were on the verge of extinction as soon as they were born. Some did not even leave their names behind. It was precisely because Pango had such achievements that he was qualified to be called a regal and establish a belief that belonged to him in the entire human race. Of course, the Yellow Emperor and the others also had faith, and there were quite a few of them. It even spread throughout the myriad worlds with the legend of Regal Pango. However, their faith was spontaneously established by human factions from all walks of life. They were grateful for their various contributions to the human race. It was not like Regal Pango, who was determined by the higher-ups of the entire human race and led by the officials. They requested that the faith of Regal Pango must be widely spread among the human factions of the various worlds by erecting monuments, temples, or books. The difference between the two was like the difference between heaven and earth. Zhou Zhou knew that he had done many things to the human race. However, it was not to the level of Regal Pango, right? But it had to be said that Zhou Zhou was very tempted. The human race had a huge population in the high continent. It was estimated to be at least 1 trillion. The faith brought by so many people would be extremely shocking. As a god of lords, Zhou Zhou had to meet at least 4 criteria in order to advance to a higher level. First, naturally, it was the Lord's law comprehension. In order to raise his Lord Law skill to a higher level, he needed to comprehend more Lord Law skills. Second, promotion energy. This was not difficult, the blessing of the war god. Third, the territory level had to be raised to the level of a god spirit. Fourth, faith. The Lord's Law itself was a god's path that cultivated both the law path and the faith path. Law comprehension and faith quantity were indispensable. Even though the subjects under Zhou could temporarily provide him with the amount of faith to advance to a higher level of God spirit, when he needed to become a true God tier or even a master God tier in the future, the amount of faith he needed would be enormous. Therefore, it was naturally best if he could obtain the faith of humans. This would satisfy his need for faith when the time came. However, he could not just satisfy the quantity. The higher the quality of faith, the better. Such a combination of quantity and quality could allow humans to provide him with an extremely large and pure faith, allowing him to go further. Therefore, after pondering for a long time, Zhou Zhou said, "There's no need for that for now." In the end, this great strategy of retreating to the primordial world was started by me. Although the people in the clan saw my high potential, I'm afraid there will only be more people who are dissatisfied with me. After all, I indirectly caused them to give up their homes and be displaced. If I forcefully spread my faith at this time, I'm afraid it won't end well. How about this? It's not too late to spread my faith when I can lead the humans out of the primordial world and not fear the attacks of high-level bloodline races. Zhou Zhou asked. Just as well. The Yellow Emperor looked at Zhou Zhou in surprise. He didn't expect he to deal with the faith of the entire human race so calmly. He nodded and said, "This is indeed not the best time to spread your faith. But I have to tell you something. You will create your divine kingdom star in the starry sky with your successful ascension. Your myths and legends have already spread throughout the high continent and even the myriad worlds. For example, defeating a pseudo-true god-tier people of foreign races, killing 3 true gods, ascending to the top of the last strongest lord of all races, and spreading the yellow talisman Tao soldier inheritance among the humans to increase the strength of the human race. You even have a legend of the yellow talisman Tao Lord in the myriad worlds. We haven't been officially sent your order to spread your faith, but in fact, your faith has already begun to spread among the humans. In the future, as long as you create more myths and legends, you will naturally conquer more humans and even people of foreign races and become your admirer or even believers." Zhou Zhou smiled and nodded. The things he had done were not in vain. And now, his strength was comparable to a true god tier. It wouldn't be difficult to create some more true god tier myths and legends. In the future, as long as he did not provoke stronger experts, he would just cause more trouble. By the way, I can give this to you now that we are meeting. After the Yellow Emperor finished speaking, he took out a dark purple jade slip and handed it to Zhou Zhou. "What's this?" Zhou Zhou asked as he took it. "You can see for yourself." The Yellow Emperor and company smiled. Zhou Zhou was even more curious. He looked at the jade slip in his hand and entered it with his divine consciousness. Then, his eyes widened slightly. "This is the regal Panga's inheritance?" he said in surprise. "That's right." The Yellow Emperor smiled and nodded. Before Regal Pangu fell asleep, he engraved all of his inheritance on this jade slip. The most important inheritance is undoubtedly Panga's heaven-splitting inheritance. It recorded in detail how god spirits below the true god tier used the nomological laws they comprehended to construct their small worlds, allowing their small world divine kingdoms to advance to the middle world and become true god tier. Moreover, Regal Pango has also discussed in detail how a true god-tier elementary grade god spirit to a true god-tier advanced grade god spirit builds their own middle thousand divine kingdom world. Apart from that, this jade slip also lists the 36 true god-tier nomological secret techniques created by Regal Pangu and the 4 master god-tier nomological secret techniques. You can take your time to read the true god-tier nomological secret technique. As for the 4 master god-level nomological secret techniques, they include the Nirvana nomological secret technique, Green Lotus birth technique, Power Master nomological secret technique, Creation of heaven and earth technique, Tao enlightenment nomological secret technique, Body integration technique, Master god-level array formation, Primitive infinite heaven shrouding array. Among these 4 master god-tier nomological secret techniques, 1 is a recovery type nomological secret technique, 2 is an offensive type nomological secret technique, 3 is a master type nomological comprehension secret technique, and it takes into account the recovery of origin type nomological secret techniques. The 4th is a protective master god tier array formation that protects the primordial universe. These 4 master god tier nomological secret techniques can actually be considered the foundation of our human race's master god tier. Actually, it can't be considered a true master god tier foundation. This is only a master god tier technique comprehended by Regal Pangu when he was a true god tier. It's not an inheritance left behind by a true master god tier after all. There's still a certain gap between the two. But even so, it's enough for us humans to benefit greatly. Many of our human experts like to cultivate in the primordial world. Even true god tiers like us are no exception. That's because the primordial world has a certain auxiliary effect on us true god tier when it comes to comprehending laws. Another example is the master god tier array, the primordial infinite heaven shrouding array. Didn't you wonder why we were so confident previously? As long as we humans retreat to the primordial world collectively, those ferocious foreign races will definitely not be able to find us. It's because of this master god tier array, primordial infinite heaven shrouding array. With this primordial infinite heaven shrouding array protecting our primordial world, as long as the supreme god realm doesn't personally take action, few existences at the master god tier level can find the exact location of the primordial world. As for the heaven-splitting inheritance, there's no need to mention it. Actually, the few of us aren't too old. The oldest Buddha, including the time when he underwent nirvana, has only reached 100,000 years old. For other creatures of lower middle-class bloodlines, at our age, the ones with the best aptitude and luck are at most high-tier deity level. However, we became true god tier. Buddha Lord and I even became true god tier intermediate grade. D***MN. It's the inheritance that Regal Pango left for us. The Yellow Emperor and the others said solemnly. Regal Pango. He's really born with a divine appearance. He's admirable. Zhou Zhou said sincerely. This existence had no longer appeared in the human race for tens of thousands of years, but the human race was still protected by the legacy he had left behind. This existence had no longer appeared in the human race for tens of thousands of years, but the human race was still protected by the legacy he had left behind. Exactly. This was the true blessing of the future. Then, Zhou Zhou naturally accepted the jade slip without hesitation. This Pangu inheritance would be extremely beneficial to his future development. He naturally wouldn't reject it. Then, they started chatting again. As they chatted, they talked about the heavenly bodhisattva of light, Roygar. After all, among the 5 people present, he was the only host who was a junior. When elders spoke, if there were juniors beside them, they would definitely talk about them. During the process of gathering the Saha Empire and retreating to the primordial world, did you discover the reincarnation of the Buddha Lord? The Yellow Emperor asked. Not yet. Roygar lowered his head and said respectfully. Strange. The Yellow Emperor stroked his beard. Could it be that the Buddha Lord has reincarnated to another realm? But with his strength that was infinitely close to a true god-tier advanced grade when he was alive, even if he reincarnated, there should be a high chance that he would be attracted to this continent and undergo reincarnation. Not necessarily. However, Patriarch Lu raised a different opinion. The Buddha mainly cultivates the law of karma and the law of time. Before he underwent nirvana, he had said that he wanted to experience the cycle of reincarnation and comprehend the Saha myriad tribulations. If he took the initiative to reincarnate into the outside world, the supreme continent wouldn't restrain he too much. That's true. The Yellow Emperor shook his head and said regretfully, among us, the Buddha Lord is definitely the best candidate for the master god-tier inheritance that common people's regal gave us. Unfortunately, he isn't here at the moment. Zhou Zhou's heart skipped a beat. I can try to find the Buddha Lord, he said. You have an idea? The eyes of the Yellow Emperor and the others lit up, even a little excited. If it was someone else who said this, they might not believe it. However, this person was Zhou Zhou, the common people's regal who was enough to attract the attention of the experts of the myriad worlds. He was the lord of the myriad races who could create miracles. Everyone was willing to believe what he said. I'll try, but it shouldn't be a problem, Zhou Zhou said. Then, he generously took out the Bodhi Supreme. With his current strength, he already had the ability and confidence to control a treasure like Bodhi Supreme. Therefore, he was not worried about being leaked. Common people's regal. Why did you let me out? Yo, There are quite a few people today, Bodhi Supreme said in a lazy voice with a teasing tone. Then, he discovered the people around him and could not help but click his tongue in wonder. Bodhi Supreme, I want to ask where the Buddha Lord of our human race is. The Buddha Lord, eh? The Bodhi Supreme said, I need an official explanation. So expensive? Zhou Zhou raised his eyebrows. That's the reincarnation of a true God-tier existence. Bodhi Supreme explained lazily, it will take me a lot of effort to find such an existence. All right, I'll use it, Zhou Zhou said without even frowning. During this period of time, as long as he was free, he would instill the Bodhi Supreme with an inheritance. Up until now, he had already officially answered 5 questions. As for the number of ordinary answers, it was a total of 12. Therefore, he wasn't stingy with this official explanation. Look, after Bodhi Supreme received Zhou Zhou's words, he did not waste any time and directly used his ability. An illusory mirror image appeared between everyone. In the illusory scene, a scene of a forest filled with vitality appeared. On a grass-covered mountainside were 5 people. One of them was a beautiful monk with a face as warm as jade. He was holding a 3-meter-long rod and pointing it at the 3 ferocious-looking slayers who were tied up in front of him. Behind this beautiful monk stood a tall, middle-aged monk with a dull and compassionate face. After seeing this tall, middle-aged monk, the heavenly bodhisattva of light, Roigar, immediately said happily, It's senior brother Kasyapa. When they saw this handsome young monk, the Yellow Emperor and company immediately stood up. It's the Buddha Lord, they said in unison. Patriarch Lu was extremely excited. Everyone understood his agitation. He had been traveling the myriad worlds in the past after all. Other than leaving a backup true God-tier combat power for the human race, his main mission was to find the Buddha Lord who had undergone nirvana. However, after countless years, he still couldn't find it despite spending countless efforts. Now that he had finally seen traces of the Buddha Lord, how could he not be happy? The Yellow Emperor and company were also extremely excited. Now that he had found the reincarnation of the Buddha Lord, as long as he awakened the reincarnation memories in the depths of his soul and awakened the power hidden deep in his body, this Buddha Lord would immediately recover his former absolute strength. At that time, with Zhou Zhou's true God-tier combat strength, the human race would immediately recover to the stage where they had 4 true God-level experts, even though it was still not as good as its peak. However, to the current predicament of the human race, it was already a very good stimulant. At this moment, Roigar raised his doubts and his excitement. Weird, since Senior Kasyapa has found teacher, why didn't you bring teacher Buddha Lord back? As soon as these words were spoken, everyone realized that something was wrong. As the most valued disciple of the Buddha Lord and the current ruler of the Saha Empire, Kasyapa should know how important the return of the Buddha Lord was to the human race. Why didn't he bring the Buddha Lord back immediately? Looking at Kasyapa's travel-worn appearance, he must have just found the Buddha Lord, right? But he looked at the 2 people in the illusory scene and voiced his guess. This young monk has a deep Buddhist charm. The golden wheel of merit is hidden deep in the void behind his head and illuminates the myriad worlds. He must be the Buddha Lord, the Yellow Emperor said. Everyone was even more puzzled when they heard this. That's not right. As a deity of the Lord's nomological path, Zhou Zhou was extremely sensitive to the myriad laws. He immediately sensed that something was amiss. He frowned and said, Why are the karmic lines on this young monk so pure and rare? As a deity of the nomological path of karma, the Buddha Lord should be surrounded by the nomological laws of karma even if he's a reincarnation. This young monk seems to be not a reincarnation of nirvana, but a normal reincarnation. The nirvana reincarnation body was a classic law skill of the law of karma. It could allow the user to carry their own strength and memories to reincarnate. After reincarnation, they would not lose their memories. It was equivalent to extending their lifespan, not a new life. Reincarnation was equivalent to abandoning power and only retaining memories to reincarnate. Moreover, this memory would not awaken immediately after reincarnation. He needed to use some method to awaken his wisdom after he grew up in order to regain his memories from his previous life. But even so, the reincarnated body would actually think that he was not a reincarnated person, but a new life that belonged exclusively to this life. In their eyes, the so-called awakened memories of their past lives were just some wonderful experiences in their lives. Moreover, their thoughts would be very firm and would not be easily swayed by the outside world. After all, once he admitted that he was himself in his previous life, it would be equivalent to abandoning his current self, and it would be equivalent to losing his current self. This kind of thing that would cause confusion was an extremely terrifying thing for any life form. Even God's spirits were no exception. Upon hearing Zhou Zhou's words, the Yellow Emperor and company's expressions changed drastically. They immediately sensed the beautiful monk's situation through this illusory mirror image. A moment later, the Yellow Emperor's face suddenly turned pale. It's really an ordinary reincarnation. The Buddha Lord was actually fallen. When the others heard this, their faces turned pale. They sped up their perception and quickly obtained the same result as the Yellow Emperor. The Buddha Lord. Roygar trembled and knelt on the ground, crying uncontrollably. The others were also silent. After a long while, the Yellow Emperor said, "The Buddha Lord should have died in the Nirvana tribulation. Rebirth is an extremely dangerous thing to begin with. Every single time a person undergoes rebirth, the person who undergoes rebirth has to grow up from a weak state. Once they encounter danger that they're unable to resist, they'll even be unable to awaken the strength they possessed before their reincarnation, and they can only watch helplessly as they face calamity and perish. Rebirth is an extremely dangerous thing to begin with. Every single time a person undergoes rebirth, the person who undergoes rebirth has to grow up from a weak state. Once they encounter danger that they're unable to resist, they'll even be unable to awaken the strength they possessed before their reincarnation, and they can only watch helplessly as they face calamity and perish. The Buddha Lord, he should be the same." No wonder Kasyapa looked so desperate. Patriarch Lu sighed. No wonder. No wonder. I don't believe it." Roygar suddenly said angrily with reddened eyes. "There must be a god spirit from the people of foreign races. Seeing that my teacher didn't completely die, they tried to find his reincarnation and secretly harmed my teacher. My teacher founded Buddhism and had the protection of infinite merit. He also had the believers of the infinite Buddhist sect constantly thinking of him. How could he have died so silently?" The Yellow Emperor and company did not speak. They knew that Roy was just too sad and had lost control of his emotions. They had no intention of blaming him. Besides, ever since the Buddha Lord underwent nirvana and Kasyapa left, the huge Saha Empire had been supported by Roygar alone. He had always thought that Kasyapa would find the Buddha Lord and be his obedient disciple again. Now that he had suddenly heard such grievous news, his 10,000 years of wish had turned to dust. Who could accept this? Roygar quickly calmed down and apologized to everyone with red eyes. "Roygar has made a mistake. Holy gods, please punish him." Roygar's voice was filled with tears again. In the past, it was always the Buddha Lord who personally punished him. However, his teacher was no longer around. "It's fine." The gods all forgave Roygar. Then, Roygar looked at Zhou Zhou. He knelt down and implored, "Your Excellency Regal, can you use your divine power again and let me know how my teacher died? As long as your Excellency is willing to agree to my request, I'm willing to serve your Majesty for the rest of my life." Everyone could hear the indignation in Roygar's heart. "Roygar, you're already obsessed. Be careful not to become a fallen Buddha overnight." Patriarch Lu shouted. Roygar did not speak. When Zhou Zhou saw this, he felt relieved about his grudge with Roygar. He even found him quite pleasing to the eye. He looked at Bodhi Supreme and asked, "Bodhi Supreme, how did the Buddha Lord die?" "Let me check," Bodhi Supreme said. After a while, Bodhi Supreme said, "There's a middle world called the New Yang world. When the Buddha Lord reincarnated into this world happened to be invaded by the mist source. the entire world would become a scarlet world. The Buddha Lord forcefully awakened his own power. He used his great magic power, great merit, great ambitions, and great faith to sacrifice everything. He used the Buddhist Dharma to dissolve the mist source in this world. Then, he passed away. Now, that world has been renamed the Nirvana Buddha realm. It has become a Buddhist world where Buddhism prospers. The living beings in that world are also grateful for the Buddha Lord's sacrifice. Moreover, under the Buddha Lord's enlightenment, everyone has the roots of Buddhism. If you want to go, I can give you the specific coordinates of the world. Bodhi Supreme said, "We want to go." "Thank you, Bodhi Supreme." The Yellow Emperor and the others hurriedly said, "Tell us the world coordinates." Zhou Zhou added. When Bodhi Supreme heard this, he told them the coordinates of the world. The Yellow Emperor and the others immediately memorized them. Patriarch Lu sighed. The Buddha Lord has used his great magic power, great merit, great ambitions, and great faith to enlighten this Nirvana Buddhist world. There will definitely be many Buddhist seeds in the future. We humans cannot give up on this place. He nodded before sighing. It's just that Buddha Lord, at the very least, his death isn't without value. I believe that even if the Buddha Lord were to make the same choice again, he would do the same. The Yellow Emperor said in a deep voice. They nodded. Only Roygar sat in place in a daze. From the looks of it, he still couldn't let it go. At this moment, the 5 people in the illusory mirror image spoke. Little monk Tathagata, why did you bring us here? The leader of the ferocious bandits said fiercely. There used to be a village here called Qingtang Village. The villagers lived in harmony. Even though their lives were poor, they could live in peace and smile from time to time. However, your Black Wind Mountain bandit gang has been pursued by the soldiers to this place. Even though the villagers don't know your background, they are still willing to accept you and give you a full meal to help you tide over your difficulties. You don't know how to repay kindness with ingratitude. Instead, you repay kindness with ingratitude. In order to gather enough food for the journey, you slaughtered all the villagers of Qingtang Village at night. You didn't even let the old, children, and women off. You did all kinds of evil for the sake of greed. The evil spirits of the human world are nothing more than this. Towards the end, the young and beautiful monk's originally calm expression suddenly became incomparably cold. Haha, so what? If we don't kill them, where are we going to get food? Are we going to get it from them? They don't even have enough to eat themselves. Are they going to give me food for dozens of brothers to travel with? The bandit leader laughed loudly, looking unrepentant. You don't deserve to stay in this world. Go to hell and experience hell. The Tathagata path. Unexpectedly, after he finished speaking, not only was the ferocious bandit leader not afraid, he even laughed even more arrogantly. Ha ha ha, brothers, did you hear that? This little monk with tender skin actually said that he wants to send me to hell? Look at how tender his hands are. Let alone sending me to hell. I'm afraid you haven't even killed a chicken. Don't think that you can kill just because you're good at martial arts. Killing people and beating people up are 2 different things. Kasayapa opened his eyes. He looked at the new reincarnation of the Buddha Lord. Buddha Lord, do you want to kill him? Buddhism also had the saying that the Vajra was enraged, so he did not reject this point. Needless to say, the number of enemies and scarlet monsters that the Buddha Lord had killed on the high continent could be counted in trillions. Therefore, he wasn't affected at all when he heard that the Buddha Lord had killed someone. He also felt that this person deserved to be killed. Killing you would be too easy for you. I'll send you to hell my way. The beautiful monk said to Kasayapa's surprise. After he finished speaking, he placed his hand on the head of the bandit leader. Then, he chanted the Buddhist scripture silently and slowly raised it. Something that made the other criminal's hair stand on end happened. As he slowly raised his hand, a soul scripture surrounded by a faint scarlet aura was forcefully lifted by him. Tathagata looked at the evil soul in his hand and said, Primordial world, Oxhead and Horseface, please open the gate of hell. As soon as he finished speaking, A hazy black-gray ghost fog quietly appeared. Then, in the ghost fog, a huge black-gray divine door carved with countless evil ghosts slowly appeared from the endless ghost fog. The door slowly opened, and a human reaper with a cow-like head and a human reaper with a horse-like head slowly walked out. Sirs, this is the soul of a guilty person. Please bring him along and let him experience the punishment of the 18 levels of hell until the sinful aura on him is wiped out. Then, you can send him back to his body. Tathagata said. All right, Saint Monk Tathagata. The two reapers hurriedly said respectfully. They did not dare to offend this young monk. This young monk was personally requested by Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva to be specially taken care of after all. If he had any requests, they should try their best to agree without any mishaps. Saint Monk Tathagata, is there anything else I can do for you? Oxhead and Horseface said carefully. Please wait here for a moment. Even though he did not know why the two ghost gods in front of him and the big monk behind him were so respectful to him, he did not have the habit of asking about their privacy and let them be. Then, his gaze fell on the other two criminals. At this moment, the two bandits no longer looked as ferocious as before. They looked at Tathagata as if they were looking at some super terrifying existence. Tathagata's gaze fell on the tall and thin bandit on his right. You're the famous executioner among the Black Wind Mountain bandits. You killed 1/10 of the villagers in Qingtang village. You should go to hell too. With that, without waiting for the other party to say anything, he used the same method to extract the other party's soul and handed it to Oxhead and Horseface, who were waiting respectfully at the side. Then, he came to the last criminal. Please spare my life. Please spare my life. I'm willing to turn over a new leaf. Please give me a chance. I'm willing to join the Buddhist sect and pray to Buddha from now on to atone for the sins of those who died. Even though I killed people from Qingtang village, I only killed 6 of them. It's far less than them. Please don't kill me. Please, please. Saint Monk Tathagata, isn't Buddhism particular about putting down the butcher's knife and becoming a Buddha on the spot? Give me a chance to become a Buddha. The last bandit knelt on the ground in fear and begged for mercy. Are you worthy of becoming a Buddha? Don't taint the Buddha in my heart. Tathagata spat and said coldly, besides, what nonsense are you explaining? The butcher that puts down the butcher's knife doesn't refer to the butcher's knife that really kills people. Instead, it refers to the delusions, persistence, inversion, confusion, and all kinds of evil words, evil deeds, malice, and other evil deeds of life forms. It means that as long as we can completely let go of these evil habits, these troubles and habits will reveal our Buddhist nature and cultivate them. You did kill 6 people, but you killed 6 babies. They are so innocent. They have just descended to the world and are already experiencing such pain. Even though you killed less than the other criminals in my eyes, you're even more cruel than the other criminals. You have sinned deeply. There's no chance of becoming a Buddha in this life. Go to hell and think about becoming a Buddha in your next life. The bandit's face paled. Tathagata was too lazy to say anything else and directly threw his soul to Oxhead and Horseface. Then, the two of them chatted and laughed before Oxhead and Horseface left. Buddha Lord, you are very different from before. Kashyapa suddenly said, I'm not the Buddha Lord. As Tathagata spoke, he arranged the bodies of the 3 of them into a classic scripture and faced the direction of the ruins of Qingtang village. Then, he cast a small spell and made them chant the reincarnation scripture in a low voice. After doing all this, a smile appeared on his face. Then, he looked in the direction of Qingtang village and said softly, let them redeem themselves for the sins they have committed. Then, he looked at Kashyapa. He chuckled and said, my Dharma name is Tathagata. Buddha, your methods are a little cruel. Kashyapa was silent for 2 seconds before he said, send the souls of those 3 to hell. With their sins, they won't come back from hell for 100 years. After 100 years, their bodies will have long rotted into shattered bones. Even if they send their souls back, they won't be able to survive. Even though you didn't kill them, you ended their lives in a very cruel way. What you're doing is wrong, Kasyapa advised. That's their salvation. It's also my understanding of Buddhism, Tathagata said calmly. Which evil Buddha taught you Buddhism like this? Kasyapa said angrily. The Dharma in my heart taught me to do this. You said that I was cruel to them. What did the villagers of Qingtang village do wrong? Why should they suffer such a calamity? These criminals are going to pay for this. They killed the villagers of Qingtang village. It was the cause they planted. Then they met me and were sent to hell by me. Who knew about this? This is the effect. Not only do I want to send their souls to hell, but I also want their corpses to read the rebirth scripture here. As for the other criminals who escaped, I will capture them one by one and let them redeem themselves in the same way. Amidst. Kasyapa put his hands together. Tathagata, your Dharma has gone astray. If you continue, you'll be in danger of becoming a demon. Dangerous? I'm the only one in the world. Tathagata put his hands together and looked at Kasyapa calmly. If I have Buddha in my heart, I am Buddha. The path I take is the path of Buddha. I don't think it's deviated, so it's the right way. You said that what I did was too cruel, but you also have the intention to kill them? You had this thought in your heart, but you deceived yourself and criticized me for doing wrong. Big guy, you've broken the rules. Kasyapa was lost for words.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.